Everybody, this is Jake with Classy Daily and representative of FOME ECU. Today, this will be a quick video showing how our hardware works, what's going on in the plug and plays as well as universal hardware, and then how to set up a Tuner Studio project, and then kind of some basics of how the input and the output work of the ECUs. So all of our ECUs, whether they be a universal or a plug and play like this is an M20 plug and play that I offer, has this brain board in it right here. So the brain board is what's doing all of the, well, it's the brain. It's doing all the computations and handling inputs and outputs. So this is what the brain board is. This is one of the versions, and this brain board plugs into the base to give all of its connectivity. That has the main processor unit. It's got all the circuitry that's doing the work to run your car. The baseboard then handles all the different things that the specific car needs. So maybe the immediate VR sensor, or if it has some other circuitry that's needed for that car that the Poly here doesn't necessarily have. Okay, so a lot of information that you probably don't necessarily need, but we want to just kind of give you just kind of an idea of the way these are set up. And the beauty of that, the one great thing about the way these are set up is that every plug and play ECU from FOME has this brain board in it, and it runs the same firmware. And so if you're tuning any of the ECUs, any of the cars, it's going to have the same stuff happening in it, whether they be from me or from Future Proof in the UK, or Beer Money Motorsports that does a lot of Miata stuff down on the East Coast. The basis of it, and for, let's not forget Angry Cactus over in Seattle, that the stuff, what's going on in it is the same thing. Okay, so the main point of this was to show you necessarily exactly how to set up your new ECU and how to configure Tuner Studio. Okay, so we'll come over here to Tuner Studio, and what you're going to do first is you're going to take a USB cord, plug it into an ECU. It'll start flashing like so, and then you're going to get that pop-up window. This pop-up window is a small little hard drive on inside the ECU that holds links to our Discord, links to the wiki, and then it has a configuration file for Tuner Studio. If there's a flash drive, a small SD card installed in your Poly, this will also pop up here, and it looks like a little hard drive to hold all the log files. Okay, so we're gonna do create new project. After you've downloaded Tuner Studio, click create new project. We're gonna call it video Poly test, but you're gonna call it whatever you want for your car. You're not gonna click detect here. We're gonna click on browse. So now you're going to go to your computer here. You're going to find the FOME EFI hard drive and choose whatever configuration file is in there. Different cars have different ones. You're going to choose that. It needs to be an INI file. Some of the older ECUs, if they were zipped, you need to unzip that first onto a desktop and then pull that file up. We'll hit next. At this window, this is really how you want it to be. This would be AFR, which is air-fuel ratio, or lambda, and lambda is really what's going on, so we're going to choose lambda today. Then here in the COM port, you're going to change to the COM port of the ECU. If you're not sure which one it is, click one, hit test port. If it says successful, you picked the right one. Hit next. You can choose different layouts in Tuner Studio. We're just going to choose the default one. It's then going to connect. It's going to download a tune like so. I would highly suggest right now, before you do anything, you're going to click File. You're going to click Save As, especially if this is a plug and play that you purchased from somewhere. They're going to give you a base tune on it. You need to save this file. So I would say go in here, and call it, we're going to call it Poly base. In this case, this is for an M50. And then keep this file. So we're going to hit save. So that's saved. That file is saved. It's not going to get in the way. You're not going to lose that file. Okay. So when you're sitting here, whether the key's on or not, If if the key is not on, your battery is going to show 0. Some of this data might be a little bit incorrect because the ECU is powered off of USB. If your key is on, you're going to see a battery voltage here. Your map signal is probably going to show 100, unless you're under the sea, you're on top of a mountain. So the first thing that you need to do when you set up a new ECU in your car is you need to calibrate that throttle position. This explanation, this video will be for a non-electric throttle body. So this will be for just a standard throttle body with a standard throttle position sensor. So we'll go to Tools, Calibrate TPS. I'm not plugged into the car, so I can't necessarily do that right now. So at closed throttle count, you're going to hit Get Current. That's when your foot is off the gas pedal. So you'll hit Get Current, then you're going to put your foot to the floor. You'll hit Get Current again. This number will change. You should see some movement here in the throttle position screen. You'll hit Accept. I'm not going to do that right now because, again, I'm not connected to the car. You'll hit Accept. This should kind of flash a little bit. And then if you move the throttle, this will actuate and be connected to where your position is on your foot. If you have electric throttle body car, this is a little bit different process, and that'll be a different video. So check that out. Down on the bottom, we'll link that. Okay, so that's the basis idea of how to connect to Tuner Studio, and then how to calibrate that throttle position sensor, which is the first thing that you need to do before you can run the car. If you have the base tune from wherever you got the ECU, if it's a plug and play, the car should run right now. You can start it. It should run and do its thing. The remainder of this video, I'm kind of going to explain just sort of how the inputs and the outputs work in the FOME base brain board, and you can kind of see how that's laid out. So in base engine, we're going to have base engine. This is where you're setting up just kind of the basic of the engine, how many cylinders, the displacement, and then the firing order. This is important. If this is a universal, you're going to have to set this up for whatever your car is. If it's a plug and play, this should be already done for you. Next one is trigger. So trigger is going to be so the firmware and the ECU knows where the engine is. This is getting its crank signal and its cam signal. So in this case, trigger angle is degrees before top dead center. We'll be at 324 for this M50. The crank sensor is set up in input VR1, and you can choose any of these. Any of these can be picked. Any of the digital inputs, any of the digital inputs can be used here. Now in this case, this has a VR sensor on this baseboard, so the baseboard has a conditioner on it. The Polybrain does not. It's just square wave digital inputs only. So then cam signal here, this might be if you have an intake or an exhaust cam. If you have both of them, you're going to choose your inputs there. Same thing as in the cam. Okay. Outputs. So we'll kind of go over this a little bit. This is a main relay output. This would be, again, you can use any output here. So whatever is mapped to the physical pin out to the world from the poly, you can choose here. So in my case, it's a low side 6. So what that's going to do is when the ECU boots, it's going to enable low side 6 and turn on the main relay. Low side 1 for the fuel pump. And TAC in this case is set up to ignition 9. And then you have your different TAC settings here. You'll have starter control, you have fan outputs here, and the different settings for that. In this case, neither fan is turned on in this tune. Okay, so we'll set up. And then again, if you have air conditioning outputs, it's in the same thing. It'll be set up there. Alternator can be set up here if you have a controlled alternator, such as a lot of the Miata stuff. But again, if you have a plug and play, that should be set up from the person you bought it from. In fuel, so injection hardware, this area here, and I'll show you at the same time the ignition because it's the same sort of information. So we have our 6 cylinders. This was based off of what you chose back in base engine here. So it activated 6. It also activates 6 coils. And now you can choose any output here as long as that output is mapped to the physical wire, to the injector, or to the coil. So in this case, cylinder 1 is mapped to low side 13. That's just how it is laid out on the baseboard. And so it doesn't matter that 1 is 13, 2 is 8, etc., as long as it's set up correctly for the car. Ignition settings, mode would be, we have a single coil, individual coils, which would be firing at each coil at once, and wasted spark. Okay. Right now this is set up at wasted spark. Even though there are six coils configured, that would mean it's going to fire 2 at a time, based on the firing order of the engine. So same sort of thing as the injector outputs. And again, we're just kind of going over the way inputs and outputs work, so we're not going to explain any of the tuning stuff and setup, just to kind of get you an idea. So idle hardware, this will be if you have an idle valve. In this case, it's a this is a double solenoid pulse width idle valve for a BMW. We have it set up as low side 10 and low side 9. This could be a stepper you could also use, or if you have electric throttle body, it's going to use some of this information here too. Boost control. So this is the output is set up at low side 11, and this is going to be based on the board that you have. This is currently set to enable. It's turned off, so these are going to be grayed out. So in our sensor spot, we have coolant temp sensor, an air temp sensor. Those are going to be the main ones that you need set up based on your car. And in this setup, so our coolant temp is analog temp 2, the air temp is analog temp 1, and then you're going to set up what the sensors and their scaling here. Then there's some aux sensors in there if you have that set up. TPS, so in this case it's a single TPS, non-electric throttle body car, so we have analog volt 1 set up here. Map sensor, so this map sensor, in this case there is one built into the baseboard, so going from poly it's analog volt 9, and then you're choosing what kind of map sensor it is. If you have, if this is a setup for a universal, it's going to be however you map it out. Accelerator pedal, so that would be if it's electric throttle body car. EGO sensor, that is going to be exhaust gas, so this is your wideband. In this case it's set up for built-on CAN bus wideband inside this ECU, but if it's an analog one, you can choose any of the analog inputs right there, whatever one that you need via your hardware. Let's see, so we have lots of different sensors here: oil pressure, oil temp, fuel pressure, fuel temp. We're not worried about those right now, but that stuff that definitely can be set up. Your aux sensors, so these are more just more sensors that you can feed into the firmware. Miscellaneous, so this would be clutch down, clutch up, brake pedal. In this case, nothing's set up in this tune. Flex fuel here, so based on what you have, any of the digital inputs can be used for flex, and this just does its job. Okay, let me see if there's anything else we need to really kind of go over in this guy. I think that's it. So as I kind of explained, your inputs and outputs can go to they can go anywhere based on the way the baseboard is set up, and or if it's a universal, how you have it wired. So if this is a plug and play unit, make sure you're using a base tune from the company that makes the units, whether it be from me at Classic Daily, or Beer Money Motorsports, who does Miata stuff, or Future Proof Performance in the UK, who's doing BMW and resells some Miata stuff, or Angry Cactus over on the West Coast, and he's kind of the guy that designs a lot of this stuff. So if you have a plug and play, make sure you're talking to those guys if you're confused about the inputs and outputs, because they're going to have base tunes already set up, and they're just going to give it to you, and it's going to calibrate it without having to go through all these steps. So I hope that made sense. I hope a lot of this information was useful, and that it helps you get your car up and running, and helps you learn a little bit about FOME and what we're trying to do with this firmware. There'll be more videos to come, or if you're watching this and there's already a million videos, I guess you have a busy day ahead of you. Thanks a lot, everybody. This is Jacob Classic Daily, and have a wonderful day.